Hello everyone, welcome to History Tea Time Chat Live. A little bit later than usual. Normally I'm here at 1 o'clock on a Wednesday, but today is a little bit different. I'll explain why in a moment. I am streaming live on Instagram, Facebook and YouTube, and glad to see some very familiar faces and some new ones already joining. Let me know if this time suits you a bit better. Actually, because we're slightly later in the day, and I know many of you joined from overseas, a lot of people from America and Canada, so maybe this is a little bit better. But anyway, the reason I am, good morning, Deborah. The reason I am a little bit later than usual, let me just see if I can get my comments up on Instagram. Bear with me. I'm not going to touch it. Right. Hello, Michaela in Virginia. Hiya, David in Chicago. Harvington Hall official, you are busy. I'm about to talk about you. So how are you here? Lottie Rose, Becky. Hello, Joanne, Melissa. Becky prefers this time. Okay, we'll see. Usually it clashes with school runs and stuff, but I am, well, we're in the summer holidays here now in the UK. So Alice in Argentina, hello. So I have been at Harvington Hall. That is why I was not able to begin this at 1 o'clock today. Hello, Diane over there in Atlanta. Hi, Linda in Michigan. How are you doing? Lots of people in here who are part of my Patreon, which is very cool. You might notice, oh, you can't see it on this background actually. In my background on Instagram, you can't see it as I've placed my computer at the moment. But the book club stack is over there. Hi, Costas, how are you? So we've only recently had our book club. I think I spoke about that last week. Did I speak about that last week? So we are starting a new book. So it's a great time to join Patreon and join book club if you're not already and you wanted to be. I know a lot of people love the book club. So we are about to start on Houses of Power by Simon Thurley. It's about the Tudor built environment and how the Tudor built environment explains to us how things would work. Becky, thank you very much for the question. Becky has just asked, how do we join book club and Patreon? Excuse me for sniffing. I've still got my cold. You go to www.patreon, which is patreon.com/British History. There's actually a link in my bio on Instagram. There is a link on the website, britishhistorytours.com, or you can go there straight away. Yes, Becky, Houses of Power by Simon Thurley. It's a fantastic book. I will be reading it for a second or third time. It's really, really great. That is the one we're going to be discussing. We will be discussing it on the 17th of September. So you've got some time to go. Melissa, his Gresham College lecturers are great. Very good point, Melissa. If anyone wants to have a look, thank you, Becky. If anyone wants to have a look at Simon Thurley in action, as it were, Gresham College on YouTube have a series of lectures by Simon. So you can see the man in action as well. Excuse me, my voice is a little bit croaky. Let me just take a sip of my tea in my Formula One mug, combining my interests. So thank you so much, those of you who are in my Patreon. You can support me with badges on Instagram, super chats on YouTube, stars on Facebook. But the way I really like you to support me, because I can throw lots of fantastic stuff back at you, is the Patreon. We have the book club, we have early booking, we have discount on online events, of which come September I'm going to be starting to talk a lot more about. We are having a Tudors online history festival. The tickets for that actually are already available if you wanted to get them already, but I'm going to really start talking about it a lot in September. But anyway, you get 10% discount on those tickets if thank you, Becky, if you are a patron in my Patreon. Now, another thing you get to do is ask questions of historians who I am interviewing. I'm about to ask for questions. I'll be posting this in the next week or so. I'm about to ask for questions on Margaret Beaufort to put to Dr. Nicola Tallis. So yeah, you'll get a chance to do that. Now, thank you very much, those of you who submitted questions for Dr. Jonathan Foyle and for Gareth Russell. I interviewed both of them last week. Gareth Russell's interview was about the Palace, his new book, which you may or may not be seeing in my background. It's 500 years of history of Hampton Court Palace, excuse me, from the Tudors through to the Windsors, and he effortlessly weaves in the political, religious, everything, all the things that are going on in the country at the time through the people who were at Hampton Court Palace, because a lot of the events are pertinent to things that have happened at Hampton Court Palace, or Hampton Court Palace is pertinent to the wider events, maybe. So that is a fascinating interview. Now, his book isn't actually published in the UK until the 17th of August, but my interview with him will go live on the 13th of August on YouTube and on the podcast, 6th of August if you are a patron, and you obviously get the extended version where he answers your questions. Jonathan Foyle's interview will go live in September. Can't remember the dates of that off the top of my head. Now, that one is very, I don't want to say explosive. It's not explosive. That's probably a bit much. But we talked about finding Tudor treasures. Now, anyone who doesn't know Jonathan's work, he's an architectural and art historian. He was the curator at Hampton Court Palace, actually, there's a link, for 8 years. He's written 6 books on cathedrals, so he's really looking at the architecture, but he explains when I interview him his interests are very wide. Now, he managed to prove the provenance of a bed which was bought by an antiques dealer called Ian Coulson, somewhere up north, can't remember where, and he managed to through years of research and piecing, yes, Jonathan has been on Time Team a lot actually, through piecing together evidence from the way the wood was carved, the material that was used, the allegories in the carvings, so the representations, how what these carvings are sort of trying to say. That's right, the marital bed of Henry VII and Elizabeth of York. So this state bed, this marital bed, there was a coat of arms on it. Yeah, okay, but his knowledge, what he managed to do, and he speaks about this, but his knowledge of and this isn't even the crux. Wait for this. So he manages to bring this all together with information and knowledge of where Henry VII visited during his reign. During the uprisings in London, he actually went to his mother's house, one of his mother's houses in the north, which was a kind of fortified manor house. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, I'm afraid. Which gives an explanation as to how the bed ends up north. Why would the state bed, why would the marriage bed end up north? It should have been at Westminster Palace of Westminster, whichever you want to say it. And he manages to piece it, to place it there by knowledge of the frieze work, the painting, the wall paintings in the bedchamber of Westminster Palace, and how this bed perfectly fits within that decoration. So he pieces all of these layers of information together to prove the provenance that this is Henry VII and Elizabeth of York's marriage bed. The crux of it is that bed is not on public display. There you will not find a professional journal that has allowed Jonathan to publish an article on it. It is still with the same antiques dealer because no one's touching it. No one wants to display it, buy it off him. So you can't go and see that bed. You can't go and see that bed. So a lot of our discussion, this is why I'm saying, is it explosive? I don't know, is about the barriers to finding new artifacts, to finding things which challenge a narrative that says nothing survived the Civil War. You won't find this furniture. And because it was bought at auction, all you're trying to do is make some money. And so we're not going to publish it. You know, so there's all these barriers. So he talks about these barriers. It's fascinating. It's I feel really animated just talking about it. Now, so that's Jonathan's interview, and Jonathan's interview will be available in September. In between Gareth's interview on the Palace and Jonathan's interview about finding Tudor relics, I have something I have been promising you for a long time. And I apologize for how long this has taken me, but I promise you it is worth the wait. And this is my interview with James Clark about the dissolution of the monasteries. And I would urge you not to allow anything that you think you understand about the dissolution of the monasteries to pass your lips until you have read his book or watched his interview with me, because it is fascinating. I wouldn't say it blows open the understanding of the dissolution. However, what it does do is take what has become a condensed and sanitized version of it, where it's an appendage to the Henry VIII, Anne Boleyn, Thomas Cromwell story, and actually explains what went on. It is a very... he was fantastic. He gave me so much time. By the way, James is also one of the speakers who'll be speaking at the Tudors Online Festival in November, which I don't even know if I finished telling you about that, but anyway, he gave me loads of his time. If you're a patron, in addition to the 5 episodes which will go live on YouTube, normally patrons have a longer version, and that's the version. So everyone's going to be able to see the 5 episodes which go out on YouTube. Patrons, you get an extra 1 hour and 20 minutes with James, where he covers things like, what was Anne Boleyn's role? What did she actually say? How is she actually feeling? Bearing in mind she dies in 1536, and actually the dissolution doesn't finish till 1540, Easter 1540. So he goes into that, how women, and you'll be surprised at how women were treated differently, and not necessarily for the worst. It's incredible. But the 5 episodes, if I can remember what I don't actually remember if I know what I called them now. I've split them into 5 different episodes. We talk about what Henry's intentions actually were when he took over the headship of the Church of England. Again, I think that will be different to what you already think or really have been told, should I say. He goes into a lot of detail about the plan. Was there a plan? We look at the Valor Ecclesiasticus, which was this almost, well, he explains it as almost like a doomsday book of all the religious institutions, houses, not just monasteries, or, you know, the lot. And there was a lot that were lay, hospitals, schools, things like that. Well, universities. What else do we cover? Let me think. Honestly, it's brilliant. Can you tell how these are? I have, the reason it's taken me so long to get it to you is because it's so long, and I had to decide how I was going to split it up and then practically get on with all the editing and stuff, because I do that as well. Talked about the Pilgrimage of Grace. that actually could have accelerated ironically, could have accelerated the dissolution, could have caused for more institutions to be closed quicker. Goes into far more detail about that than I can cover now. One episode looks at the actual process. What happened? What happened when an institution was actually being closed? You know, what happened on the day? What happened to the people? How did they go around after that? And then the final episode is about the fact that even right at the end, it wasn't a done deal that all of the monasteries, that this was going, well, all the monasteries were going to be closed. It wasn't until the very last time, very last one really, a complete dissolution. There wasn't a plan. Honestly, you are going to find it fascinating. I really hope you find it fascinating anyway. I'm sure you can tell that I do. So I am going to be taking a break after today for a few weeks, but so I can't remember what the dates are going to be off the top of my head, but in about 2-3 weeks time, I will James's talks will be coming out. So one per day for 5 days. So they're all in about, I think half an hour is the longest, or just over half an hour. So you'll be able to see one each day for the week. So you won't miss me too much, because you'll be watching that, or you can listen to it on the podcast as well. And then patrons, you get that the week before. And like I say, there is this extra bonus episode, which is an hour and 20 of more absolute gold from James. So there you go. Oh, need to sit down now. It's fabulous. Anyway, so I'm very, very excited to be able to finally get that to you. Now, if you like historian talks and you haven't been back through my channel on YouTube or the podcast, please do. There's so many there. The last one that was that I put out was with Sarah Slater, who is the Hampton Court tour guide. She's a white badge guide. So I've spoken about this, I think, before. She was talking about what it's like to guide at the Hampton Court Palace. So it's a brilliant one to listen to before Gareth's, which of course is also on Hampton Court Palace. So yeah, please take a look back through. We've got quite a few now in the back catalogue. So if you haven't caught them all, being history, it's quite cool because most of them are evergreen, as they say in the trade. It doesn't really matter that it's a few months ago, it's still all perfectly relevant. Emma says Sarah's interview was brilliant. Thank you. Really enjoyed speaking to Sarah. Sarah is I think I said this about this last week. She's a white badge guide. So Becky, there's actually exams that people sit. So Sarah she's actually doing her blue badge guide as well at the moment, but as a white badge guide, she's an expert in a particular place, hers being Hampton Court Palace. And because she conducts tours at Hampton Court Palace. If you're with me on a tour, when we go to Hampton Court Palace, I always ask Sarah to do our tours. She's absolutely fabulous. But she does, you can hire her as well. And she does, they're doing Grace and Favour tours, I notice now, which have come back. They hadn't run since before COVID, but they're back now, rooftop tours. But she's great because her depth of knowledge of all time periods of the palace is fabulous. Linda says she was brilliant. Of course, Linda, when you were with us in 2022, in May 2022, yeah, you saw Jonathan and Sarah. That's right, yeah. So Jonathan Foyle has spoken on a couple of my tours as well. So yeah, so check that one out. I would recommend before Gareth. So don't have to be in that order, but I think you'll enjoy it. I haven't got back to talking about Harvington Hall, have I? I went off on a tangent, got very passionate, So the reason I'm a bit later today, and maybe we will stick at this time, I'll take your feedback on that, is because I've been at Harvington Hall's first annual History Festival. I'm very lucky that Harvington Hall, which is a Elizabethan manor house, it is a proper gem. I mean, there's a lot of places at gems, but it is Lottie Rose. It was a very interesting tangent. Good, thank you, thank you for sticking with me. Yeah, so Harvington Hall is moated manor house, Elizabethan manor house with a history that goes back further than that. Wall paintings, priest hides, kitchens. It is. It's a place that once you visit, you'll be blown away. And I know lots of people have seen it now on social media, seen perhaps some of the posts I've done about it and have I want to go. I don't blame you. I'm about to take a tour group there, actually, Linda. So you'll see it in September. So we're doing the Elizabeth I and Mary Queen of Scots tour, and we're having an audience with Elizabeth I, no less. In fact, you can see her picture if you're looking on if you're watching on Facebook or Instagram. You can see Leslie up there on my bookcase. Leslie as Elizabeth I. So we're having an audience with Elizabeth I at Harvington Hall. But yeah, so they're having their first history festival. It is close to me, so I am very excited that they're going to be doing this annually. Yesterday yesterday I attended the talk by Dr. Nicola Tallis about Margaret Beaufort. And just as a reminder, if you're in my Patreon or you would like to be, remember, you can always do it. It's only £5 a month. You can put your questions to historians. Nicola is the next historian who I will be interviewing at the end of August. So in a couple of weeks, I will be asking, maybe less than that, maybe a week. I'm about to go on holiday, but anyway, that's I half go on holiday, unfortunately. So I will be asking for questions for Nicola about Margaret Beaufort. Anyway, so I was listening to her talk yesterday. Fascinating, because there is lots about Margaret the woman, as opposed to the kind of mother of Henry VII, matriarch, ambition through her son. There's a lot more to her as a person to understand than that. And she was amazing, Lottie Rose. She was. I'm not sure whether I would have liked her. But then I don't know, because there's some of the things that Nicola was talking about, actually, there was a much lighter side to her that you don't hear about. So, and the tragedy she dealt with, and unfortunately her life ends in tragedy. So I will be in terms of what's happened to her family in the run up to that, should I say. So I will be speaking to Nicola soon. But today I was listening to another talk, and the festival lasts for another few days, but I am off on holiday tomorrow. So I couldn't go to any more talks. But I was listening to Dr. Jonathan Willis today at lunchtime about Martyrs of Elizabethan England. And he spoke about martyrdom across the Tudor period, actually, about how Henry VIII begins to kill people for thought crimes, really, for not believing what not believing. And you have your first martyrs, Fisher, More, for not accepting Henry as the head of the church, and for not believing some of the changes, or getting behind some of the changes that would come in because of that. which interesting, like all these things, I love it, because the more interviews I'm doing, and that you start to see an overlap. And one of the things I'll just skip back to quickly is James talks about the monastic, the attitudes of the monasteries towards Henry VIII becoming the head of the church in England. And again, I think it will surprise you what their attitude actually was. But anyway, so he talks about, so Jonathan today spoke about that. Got into much more detail, of course, about the martyrs created under Mary and then under Elizabeth. So he talked about how, you'll all be familiar, I imagine, with Fox's Acts and Monuments, better known as Fox's Book of Martyrs, which was a tomb. It was twice the size of the Bible, apparently. 4 editions, so 4 different reprints. By the time of its 4th reprint, it had in it around about 2.5 million words, and it didn't just describe the martyrdoms of Protestant believers, but also removed. It was a martyrology, as not as a history, which is it was an important point he made. Fox basically wrote out of the history of the church in England any papal involvement in its establishment, taking it right back to the Apostle Joseph of Arimathea, which I think links to the Glastonbury story, because they claimed that he went there. But anyway, I'd have to piece those together to tell you more about that. And that actually it was nothing to do with the Pope sending over missionaries, etc. So it actually, so in that way you can see, so and he does that because he wants to show that the history of persecution of true believers is a long one that stretches back 500 years, even before the time that they find themselves in. So he spoke about that, but then there were other works as well for the opposite, side, because obviously that's the Protestant story. There was an account by, I'm just trying to find it, Verstegen. I may not have pronounced that correctly. And I can't remember the title, The Theatre of Cruelties of something. Sorry, I can't remember what the title was. But it was printed in English and French, so it had quite a large reach. And it was, he was actually a goldsmith. So, he was a goldsmith and he was on the continent. Those two things combined meant that the quality of the images in this book and the printing of those images was far, it was better, I suppose. It's not that it was particularly, I don't think, in response to Fox's, or in any way, shape, supposed to be kind of directly competing with it, but it meant that the imagery used in the book was really powerful. So images of the torture of heretics, of the execution of heretics, and it includes the execution of Mary, Queen of Scots. So Fox's Book of Martyrs is kind of showing evidence of a church which is so cruel, the Marian church, it can't be the true church. I won't go into the detail now because it's too gruesome, really, for a midday live. But the Guernsey ladies, a mother and her 2 daughters, burnt as heretics, and the mother was pregnant. You may be familiar with the story. That a church that can do that, it can't be the correct church. So that's Fox. The Verstegen's book, the Theatre of Cruelties of something that I can't remember how it was finished off, the title, culminates with the execution of Mary Queen of Scots. How can a church that leads to the execution of a regnant queen be the correct church? So it's a great run through of how martyrdom had been used. Now you have to remember as well that the writers and the proponents of these sorts of works, they have their own agenda as well. So Jonathan Willis talked about the sort of things that maybe were left out about the stories of some of these martyrs, that actually some of them were too extreme for their own side. They didn't necessarily hold views that were in keeping with the Catholic faith or the Protestant faith, whichever one they were in the book to be martyred for, supposedly. So that was very interesting. Shows actually division within the two sides themselves, not just between the two sides, but within the sides each. So it's very nuanced. It's very, he calls it muddy. It's very muddy. It's not clear cut at all. And like I said, the writers or the proponents of these works do have their own ideology, their own religious and political agenda, which goes along with it. So that was fascinating. So that was where I was. That was where I was this afternoon at the usual time that I would normally do this. So that's Harvington's History Festival. I would thoroughly recommend it if you are around the area this year. I don't know, you'd have to ring up, I think, for tickets now. But as it's going to be annual, maybe if you are planning a trip over to the UK, you can coordinate it next year, which should be great. Maybe I'll see you there. The Had girls might be trying to get a slot. So Had tonight is going to be a little bit different. The summer is always a little bit of a issue because I'm on tour and then we have holidays and all sorts of things going on. Lottie Rose, the History Festival I think is on for the next 2 or 3 days. I'm not quite sure. If you have a look on Harvington Hall's website, which I think is harvingtonhall.org, but if you just Google Harvington Hall, you will see it. Samantha, would I be there on Friday? No, because I go away tomorrow, unfortunately. Well, not unfortunately because I'm going away. That's great. Except I'm camping and it's raining at the moment, so that's not great. But I will, it means that I'm missing some fabulous talks at the festival, which is a shame. So yeah, Had, that was where I was at, wasn't it? So tonight on Had, we are having a little bit of a chilled night in that we're not doing a deceased git tonight. Yes, if we have to go, well, we're just tabling the idea that the Had girls maybe could do an actual session, but we haven't asked Phil, so it could just be complete pie in the sky. Yeah, so we'll see. Had tonight, sorry, right. So it's just going to be a game tonight. In fact, I would love it if you were coming along, come prepared. We're going to do the what's the polite way of putting this, the kiss marry word I probably can't say on YouTube without being banned. Kick, maybe, don't know. I don't know what the polite way of saying it is, but we will be doing that. So you can come tonight and propose to us triplets of whoever you want, really, and we will tell you what we would do with them, in what order. That sounds wrong. You get me. But anyway, that's what we're going to be doing. So we're going to have some fun tonight. And then I will be, yeah, Lottie Rose. I can't, I can't say that then. I can't say it now. We'll be saying it on History After Dark. Totes. We will be doing, so basically we're having a bit of fun tonight. We will be, then it's going to be a bit disrupted, for a couple of weeks because I am away. Then we'll be back on the 16th of August for 2 weeks. So we will continue with the Deceased Gits series. The next one in line is Thomas Seymour. So he will be worth coming in and shaming. You can come in and give your 2 pennies worth on him. So that's History After Dark tonight, 8:15 on history.after.dark on Instagram, and it's just History After Dark. It might be underscores on YouTube. You'll see our black microphone logo. Lottie Rose, I know who mine would be. Always the conversation of oh right, okay, always the conversation topic amongst the drunk history nerds. Yeah, well, the live events could get fun, couldn't they? So I hope you join us later. Now, in the meantime, I also do have another little mini virtual tour that has just gone live on YouTube of Wells Cathedral, which you may want to take a look at. It's just a few minutes long. All the cathedrals are beautiful, aren't they? But it has some unusual features, which I think you will enjoy looking at and hearing about. So I will now be taking a break for the next 3 weeks at least. But don't worry, because there will be, in the meantime, there will be Gareth's interview going live. You have the Wells Cathedral video to have a look at. And towards the end of the month, there is the James Clark series on the dissolution of the monasteries, which I am ridiculously excited about. I really hope you enjoy it as much as I did. I really, really do, because it's, right. Thank you, everybody. I will see you all when I'm back from my holidays, or I will see you tonight if you are coming to History After Dark. All right, everyone, take care, and I will see you all very soon. Bye-bye.